Welcome in, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Johnston, joined by my co-host, as always, Jacob Boyers. Jacob, I managed to make it through 12 seconds of positivity for this episode, and I think you and I can both speak to this. That's probably all that it's going to be. As Kentucky went down to Nashville, a city who, Jake, are we done going to Nashville? Can we? I know the SEC
It's
tournament's there for a lot longer. I'm
not been
tired of going to
kind.
Nashville. It's a beautiful city, and I love it. But I'm done with the basketball games there. Kentucky got absolutely demolished by Gonzaga, 94-59, 35-point loss. One of the worst in Kentucky history, and obviously the worst of the Pope era. Jake, talk me off the ledge if you can, or are you just coming to the ledge with me?
Yeah, man, I'm there with you, Cam. And at some point, to be a good team, you got to beat some good teams. And this team not only can't beat good teams in 3 of the 4 games for majority of the game, you weren't even competitive. And obviously, this one was the worst. And from moment one, Friday night, you were just completely out effort, out talented, out coached, out everything. You're down 19-2 after the North Carolina game where you went, 10 minutes and 30 something seconds without making a field goal there in the second half. You go, it was 11 minutes and some change when they made their first field goal. I saw the stat that Graham Ike had 10 made 2-point field goals. Kentucky as a team had 9. I mean, I think if Ike would have stayed in and Gonzaga kind of kept playing at that level, he might have outscored the entire Kentucky team, because at one point late in the second half, it was like 27-25. So it was, yeah, I don't know, Cam. I really don't. I don't know where this team goes. I don't know what a potential answer looks like. And I tweeted out, is this team worse than the 2020 COVID team? And there's a legitimate argument that they're floating with that territory. That team didn't get the luxury of playing teams in the 330s of net, and they were at least competitive in a lot of their losses. This team has just flat out not been.
Yeah, and the crazy thing, and you kind of touched on it there, is just outside of a spurt of the Louisville game, and then honestly what I think to be a pretty average, maybe a little bit above average North Carolina team, you've just gotten blown off the court against your four competitions, like the 4 games that you expect to be in and have legit competition in. And it's just so debilitating to see. Like you mentioned, we got to 11:05 left in the first half before we made our first field goal. Aberdeen hits a 3. I mean, what are we doing? We had over 12 minutes of game time against North Carolina without hitting a field goal, and then you go 9 minutes here. I mean, you're almost talking about a full half of basketball in the past 2 games in which we couldn't find a field goal. And this is coming from a team that was, Mark Pope's whole system is offense, offense, offense. And here we are, back-to-back games. And it just seems like there are no answers. And I think that's probably the most damning thing to say, is that there's a lot of problems. I don't think there are any fixes.
Yeah, I don't really know. Like, you look at it and you say, maybe you put a lineup together of shooters, but I don't know. Can anybody on this team shoot? I know
Shoot.
they're not even close. I mean, we mentioned it with Cam Williams after North Carolina. The guy, it doesn't even feel like he comes close on every 3 he's taken. All we heard about is, Yelovich is this knockdown 3-point shooter. He's going to struggle on defense, and he can't even buy one. He had some really bad shots Friday night. Trent Noah's giving you nothing. Colin Chandler's cooled off. I don't know. As crazy as it is, it might be Aberdeen that's your best shooter right now. And like you mentioned, he will go out and airball 3-4 times a game. So there's just nothing. And Ortega obviously looks really bad. I thought there were moments Friday night where he had really poor effort again. I don't understand where that comes from. Maybe just the fact they just got down 19-2 and he pretty much threw in the towel. But, like we talked about before, his game is not designed to go out there with four guys that can't spread the floor, and there's zero driving lanes for this team because teams just don't have to respect any type of offensive threat. And I don't know what the answer is. I mean, Jalen Lowe obviously didn't look good. I think that, to an extent, is probably to be expected coming back at this point. But just, yeah, I mean, it sucks. And I feel like for the next 30 minutes, 40 minutes, however long we record here, we're just going to have a lot of I don't knows. But I genuinely do not know. This team is just unfortunately flat out good. And I never saw that kind of coming to fruition. I know when we talked after Purdue, we both kind of, I think Tyler asked us, like, does this change our expectations of the season? And me and you said the exact same thing. We don't know if it changed the peak or the ceiling, but we definitely felt like it elevated the floor and what they showed. And we didn't think this would just be a really bad team. But, like, you're right now not projected to make the tournament, I think, with the way things are going. I mean, they're going to get probably some good wins here and there just because that's the way college basketball works. But so far, you don't have anything on a resume or that shows you can go build a good resume going forward.
Yeah, but really the only thing that's been put on a resume is that you can beat bottom 300 Ken Palm teams, and then you can get wiped off the floor against anybody in the top 100. And we're going to have both of those again this week with North Carolina Central, who is one of the worst teams in college basketball, and then Indiana, who's playing pretty well as of late. Jake, the thing that's killing me the most is early in the season, it kind of looked like it was just this may be an Ortega problem. This may just be his lack of energy. It may just be a Brandon Garrison one-off game. Right now, it's everyone. Like, I genuinely, watching that game, there was not a single player on the team that I looked at and I was cool with their effort. And
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know how that happens in such a big game like this against Gonzaga in Nashville, which you could hear the crowd from the opening tip. The crowd was there, they were into it and everything. And you just sucked the life out of them within 9 minutes of the game. Like, there was at no point was this ever a game. Graham Ike, however you want to pronounce it. I mean, for the love of God, man, get this guy out of college. I'm tired of seeing it. This guy
it feels like it's been a long time, but I still think he's only a junior, and I think it's just because we've had 3 straight years of being dominated by him.
Yeah, well, I'm tired of seeing it, and hopefully we can get our lick back because I mean, this guy waved goodbye to the crowd with like 10 minutes left in the first half and proceeded to dominate.
They were playing football before the game started. They had an actual football on the basketball court 10 minutes before tip.
I don't know if you saw the reporter ask him. He's like, yeah, you've gotten your way with Kentucky in the last 2 seasons. And he corrects the reporter and says, oh, no, I've done it in 3 seasons in a row.
Or I guess,
I mean, the guy, granted, obviously he lost last year, but he kind of owns Kentucky. And I think now you've actually seen our one bright spot I think we both took into this game was how we felt about Malachi Moreno. And now even that one bright spot, granted, I do want to preface with saying that, like, that's such a tough spot to put the kid in.
Yes.
It's such an unbelievably tough spot to put him in. And I think you brought Brandon Garrison back to be able to play in games like this and, be able to not use Malachi as much. But obviously, with how unreliable he's been, you haven't been able to do that. But our one bright spot so far in Malachi Moreno, man, did he have a tough week. And the part that really concerns me is I think he regressed back to some of the other guys where the lack of effort from him was there too. And it's really concerning that it's getting to a young guy like that who's playing for his childhood team, playing in front of, Big Blue Nation. To see him kind of throw in the towel these past 2 games is it's hard to see. And I don't know where any of the answers are because right now you listen to Pope's talk, you listen to Aberdeen talk, and I want to start our Denzel Aberdeen conversation here because I don't know if I'm going to be more negative on a singular player on this team than Denzel Aberdeen. The lack of effort's there. He drives in. You can tell him and Ortega, whatever the beef is, there's something there. I don't know what it is. I don't know how personal it is, how far it's gotten. There is a clear beef between the two. Ortega's sitting in the corner wide open. Denzel takes up a contested 2 in the – granted, Jake, I'd rather have you take the open three in the corner than Ortega. But I mean, he's sitting there right there. Then Ortega shows him up by, faking the jump shot there as well. And then Aberdeen comes out today and says he's the leader of this team. Who the
It was
hell
a
has
shame.
ever thought that? Where is that ever? I've never seen that. I've never seen any positive body language from him. I've never seen him picking up Jasper Johnson, who's a young guy. As a senior, you should be putting him under your wing. I've never seen him create for teammates. I've never seen him do anything like this. For him to come out today and call himself a leader of this basketball team, I think was probably the worst comment I think we've heard so far this season. And it's been a season full of bad media trained comments. And this was by far the worst.
Yeah, if he's the leader, there's a ton wrong with this team, and I think that checks out and makes sense.
If
But
he's a leader, I can understand why. We just got beat by
yeah,
35.
yeah, and and that's the shame, right? You would think having Ortega and then Denzel, a senior, on a team that just won a national championship a year ago, you would think they would be able to actually display some leadership characteristics. I feel like at times it's there for Ortega, but at other times it's just back to the effort thing. Denzel, I don't think I've seen it one time this year. I mean, I told you how frustrated I was after North Carolina watching him sit there and yell at Malachi and throw his hands up and like show him up essentially on the floor. Um, Back to Malachi real quick. I agree with you. This was just a really tough spot for a 18-year-old that a year ago was playing Kentucky high school basketball, right? I don't think any of us expected him to come in and be the starting center day one, and then to get to the point where he's played 8 really good games up until this one, and then he's going up against a 23-year-old, man. That's a matchup you expect him to lose and not look as good in that, but you would expect also your guards to play a lot better and give you a chance to at least compete with Ike, right? And score some points and keep you in that. But the offense is just so bad. And I think that it trickles into everything else. They come out, they can't make shots. You get down 19-2, and then, I mean, this team just quits. And unlike last year, where if you got down big, which we obviously saw a lot, you had Kobe Brea, Jackson Robinson, guys that could make shots and get you back in a game, or you could throw the ball into Amari and he could go 3 straight possessions of getting a bucket in the post, or even we saw Andrew Carr do it at this point last year. There's not one guy, again, because of roster construction. I don't think Ortega can be that guy because he can't just put his head down and go to the rim because there's no spacing. But last year, I legitimately think all 5 of your starters at a moment could go on a little stretch where they would get you 4 to 6 points and a handful of buckets in a row. And you don't have anybody on this team that can do that outside of occasionally we've seen Aberdeen make a couple open threes consecutive, but there's just zero rhythm. And again, when they went down 19-2, I think they knew there's no way that this team currently is just built to kind of get hot enough offensively to come back from that. And I think that just really kind of, it felt like not one of them wanted to be out there Friday night. And you mentioned the crowd. I mean, the crowd was giving it everything they got. You saw, like, I saw Jack Pilgrim tweet right before the game, like, this is 95% Kentucky fans. They're, ready to explode. And from moment one you took them out of it, they were begging for it. You would hit a shot to cut the lead to 20 and they were going crazy, just trying to get some type of energy for the guys to feed off of, and they just never did it. It was kind of the same thing, with Carolina. We talked about how great that crowd was, and you just never gave them the effort back that they were giving you.
And I think that's the full reason why there was that chorus of boos from early in the first half.
Absolutely.
I don't, and I want to start off by saying this as someone who's like just recently got out of that age, like that older college age. You can boo whoever you want. I hear the notion
I
of
would have.
you can't boo college kids. I've had much worse things said to me in college than somebody booing me from the rafters. And guess what? I mean, these guys are wearing Kentucky across their
They
chest.
get paid now. The same.
That means a lot
And
to a
these
lot.
aren't 18-year-old kids. They're 22, 23-year-olds on this team.
Yeah, I mean, there are people out there with like, BG, he's a father. I'm not even a father. I mean, good. I mean, what are we talking about here? So the premise of like you cannot boo these guys, I think is ridiculous. I think they've earned all the criticism that they've gotten because,
Yes.
I mean, look at this just as an investment. Theoretically, you invested $22 million, and that's been reported as accurate, not accurate, whatever value you want to say. You have not gotten that return on investment in effort, in play on the court, in anything. And I don't know where that will go from here. I mean, you keep hearing these guys in the press conferences before games, oh, we're fixing it. They're all cognizant of the effort that they're not giving. At what point do you change it? Like at least Ortega, he said he had an effort problem. He fixed it for a game and a half.
Yeah.
Like at what point does the rest of the team just sit there and say, like, man, no help's coming. We got to figure this out. It's us 13 guys. If we don't figure it out, we don't figure it out. And the only problem is I'm not sure if they have that will to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it. I can understand, maybe one game coming out flat, and like we talked about it again. If you can't get up for at Louisville, Michigan State in the Garden, North Carolina at home in front of a sold out crowd at 9:30 at night, and Gonzaga in Nashville where you absolutely dominated the crowd, like just at what point do you get up for it? And I think that's obviously where we are. And effort, like that's the biggest thing. I always said it, like I even said it back to the COVID team. Like people every time a team's not good, they say like they don't play hard or they don't care. Well, a lot of those teams I just think honestly weren't very good. I never felt like guys on that COVID team weren't out there giving it their all. I just think you had a poor offensive design and you didn't let the best players be the best players at times and stuff like that. But like I didn't feel like they didn't care. This is the first time where I legitimately am saying that it's an effort based thing. If you went out there and you gave it your all and you lost to Michigan State by 5 and you played with Gonzaga and you gave it your all and you lost by 5 or 10, then we could just sit back and say, like, this team's just not very good. But I think they're not very good and they're not giving good effort, which leads you to 35-point losses and never being competitive in a game. And that's like the one thing that's not excusable, right? Again, if this team just wasn't good, we could sit there and say the roster was poorly constructed. Next year, Coach or Pope cannot whiff on a roster, and he's got to build his type of roster and get us back to where we are. But when it's 4 marquee games in a row that you don't have good effort from your consistent 5 players that are on the floor, then it's a much bigger issue and it makes everything obviously look a million times worse.
And I'm not saying the coaching staff isn't giving effort either, but it sure doesn't come off across on the broadcast. Like, I think I saw Jason Hart out there at the end of the game giving it some energy. Outside of that, man, I'm just not seeing, like, there's no desire to fix something in the moment. I know we had this complaint a little bit last year where it's like, oh, we're collecting data points. Like, at some point, Mark has to be a coach. Like, I'm all for collecting whatever data you can find to help you get an advantage. At some point, you are the head coach. You can let the assistant coaches get those data points, do whatever they want with it, and bring it to you. At the end of the day, man, I need you to hold these guys accountable because right now you're paying them to be there day in, day out. You're paying them to get their best effort. You're paying them to get wins and to put, Kentucky basketball back on the map. And right now, top down, dude, I haven't felt this bad about Kentucky basketball in quite some time because, like, I'm starting to get to the point where you're listening to outside noise and you're listening to people talk, like on the field of 68, you're listening to TNT broadcast. I'm trying to get different perspectives from outside of just our little bubble because I know you and I think a lot alike when we think about basketball and Kentucky basketball history. This 6-year stretch that Kentucky basketball has been on is obviously the worst in Kentucky basketball history. And I don't think that's anything crazy to say. And I hate to say this, but you're really starting to teeter the line of falling into that Indiana trap, falling into that UCLA trap. Because over the past 6 years, IU has like one less tournament victory than us and UCLA has like 6 more. And those are two programs that we look at and say, oh man, how far are they falling out of relevance? If you're talking about not making the tournament with this roster and how much money you spent, man, I don't know how much lower it can feel.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do think like the one difference is our fans, really. And like, I know that kind of sounds cliche, but like, it is true. Like, there's years Indiana fans just simply do not care. And I don't really ever see that getting the case here. I mean, as bad as we can be and as bad as this 6-year stretch is, we're still into it. We still care tremendously. But I'll go back to kind of your comment about Pope. Like, I do want to say, like, just because we don't see it, we don't know what happens behind closed doors. I mean, we saw him at Ole Miss last year come out for his end of the game press conference bleeding because he broke a whiteboard. But, we're not seeing it, so it's hard to say. Who knows? Maybe he goes in the locker room and acts like everything's cool and, talks to these guys kind of the same way he talks to media. Maybe he goes in there and loses his mind and freaks out. Unfortunately, there's no real way for us to probably ever know. But it's just all brutal right now, man. And again, like, just back to the effort thing, that's what you're leaving yourself open to. I mean, you got DeMarcus Cousins talking about it. That's a guy that was one of the most beloved players here, talking about it. And I will say, I think Pope gave a really good answer when asked about it in the press conference. I know nobody's winning press conferences right now when you're losing by 30, but I thought his answer was good of like, these former players deserve to be critical of us, and they should. And he's right. But you know what? At the end of the day, that only goes so far when you're losing by 35 points. There's not really a whole lot he can say to make people feel better at this point. And then you were talking about Field of 68 just real quick. When those guys are being critical, it's pretty bad, because I don't know if there's two people in the media that like Mark Pope more than Jeff Goodman and Rob Doster. And, and I thought everything they said was obviously 100% correct. They both kind of said, I don't see an answer for this team right now. And, Goodman even said, he was like, 9 games ago, Kentucky fan Mark Pope could do no wrong, and now there's a lot of people questioning whether he can be the coach for here or not. But I just think the effort's just really shocking to me, and I don't know what you do to fix that, whether it's benching some of these guys and just saying I'm going to play lesser talented guys that go out there and fight for me for a half against Indiana or something. I don't know, but it's obviously what you're doing right now is not working.
And Jake, I just want to read you. I read it to you before we got on here, but one of Pope's quotes from the radio show with Tom Leach: "We're having a major overhaul, reconstruction. It's been super emotional and really taxing at times, and at times really ugly and violent. We're reconsidering everything." Like, what do you make of that quote? Obviously, 3.5 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, whatever it was, that Louisville game feels like so long ago. There was something made of the pregame experience, what happened there. And you have, who's the bald white guy on Field of 68? You know what I'm talking about? It's
What?
Terry,
I
Ogle.
don't know. Yeah, I know.
But, he's talking about, at some point, you've got to set an example. He's talking about kicking somebody off the roster. So there's got to be something more about what's going on inside this locker room that's not getting let out. And when Pope has a quote like that, I think there's obviously been a lot more that have happened behind closed doors that hasn't gotten out, which usually at a program that's as big as Kentucky with as many media outlets as there are, usually finds its way out. I mean, what do you think about something like that? Because it kind of gives me a little bit more confirmation that something big did happen, no matter how much Pope wants to diminish it.
Yeah, I would like to actually hear the lead up question to that rather than just that, because my initial reaction to it is he was talking about this week in practice after the Gonzaga game. And what I took at it is either challenging certain players. We've mentioned time and time again the guys that we think have been extremely disappointing with their effort, or maybe not even challenging them and just confronting them and telling them straight up that their effort is putrid and they're not going to play. That's kind of where my mind went to it. But again, I would have to kind of hear what Tom's like lead up question was or what was said before it. Is he talking about just all year they're trying to like go through this journey or however he put it? Or was it more so just in reference to the practices that started after the Gonzaga game? Because he also came out and said, Ortega had his best practice on Saturday after the loss. And I know there is some coach speak. Maybe you take it with a grain of salt, but if that's true, that is something that's positive for me. That if Ortega did go out there and pretty much say, like, I'm going to give it my all in practice, and then hopefully that carries over to games, but at least maybe he can step up and be that leader of, we're not going to live with this. But I don't really know. I would, again, just want to hear a little more context with it. Maybe I'll try to find it after the show, but that's kind of where my mind goes, is that he was talking more so about this particular week and probably challenging some guys straight up in practice.
And I just want to say something about Ortega. Granted, there were lapses in the game on Friday. I don't think he's been the problem for the last week and a half, two
I agree.
weeks. I mean, this game he had 16 points, 5 boards, and 5 assists, and led the team in assists and rebounds. I don't think right now Ortega's a problem. I don't even think his effort is the problem. I think if you look at that group of who gave effort on Friday, even though he had lapses in the game, I think he's still up there as one of the guys who gave the most effort. Granted, that's not saying much,
Right.
but I mean, I like what I think you're seeing Ortega start to realize, like, hey, man, instead of being just a piece of this offense or a piece of this team, I think he's starting to realize, like, I have to dominate on the defensive end to get out in transition, to get my points. I think he's starting to remember how he got his points last year. Because, Jake, we talked about it before the season started. Like, why was Ortega so good last year? First off, he had shooters on the outside that freed up lanes. But if we were getting out in transition offense, which was hard for us to do last year, it was because Ortega was creating steals or there was a block that led to Ortega getting out in transition. He's finding ways to do that even though the defense is not playing well and neither is the offense. I don't think Ortega is the problem right now. I genuinely think it's almost everything but.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I thought, again, we talked at length about how good I thought he was in the North Carolina game. He didn't force anything. Early in the year, there were obviously some effort things, but I also thought he was playing outside of his game a lot offensively, and it kind of made us pull our hair out. Maybe we're really starting to realize why he felt like he had to take contested threes and, pull up from mid range, because there's zero offense outside of him and everybody else on this team. But yeah, I mean, I know there were a couple clips going around where like he maybe didn't fully get back in transition. I just think the way that game went, I'm not going to say I understand a team quitting, but you can kind of see them quitting in that game. I mean, you were down 19-2 before you even blinked, and you couldn't hit a shot. And I think part of that is just natural human reaction to kind of put your head down and be like, we came out amped up for this game and nothing's working. But I do agree, like Ortega, while he's had his moments and he had some moments Friday night, he still hasn't been your biggest issue. So I do take it as a positivity if truly Saturday was his best, practice that he's had with Pope, because I think that can kind of show the type of leadership that this team needs. And hopefully the other 12 guys on the roster all saw it. Like, if your best player after a 35-point blowout can get in the gym and work his ass off, there's no reason for somebody else not to.
Yeah, it's also good to know that they had practice on Saturday.
Yeah,
Like,
no
just
off days after that.
getting back. It is good to hear. I mean, even though we look, like you kind of mentioned and prefaced earlier, we look at Pope like a soft guy. It's good to know that no off days after a 35-point rout in Nashville, especially in front of that crowd that we had there. But something I kind of wanted to mention is, like, last year when we had these guys, you had the like on court leader, like lead through actions in Amari Williams, and then you had that vocal leader in Lamont Butler.
Yeah.
Ortega can be one. I don't think he can be both. And I just want to know, like, who do you think potentially like step into that role? Because I think if you're starting to see Ortega take those steps, I think he can be that on court lead by example guy if he shows the full effort that he has recently. But I still don't think we have that vocal leader. Right now, I don't think I would like to say it's going to be Jalen Lowe. I've seen him do it a little bit on the bench. But with him going through that Lamont Butler type injury, I don't know if he's got the pull with this team that Lamont did this time last year. And there's so many like cautionary tales about like what's going wrong with this team that I just don't know what's going to fix any of it. I don't think there is a fix, if I can be quite honest with you. But yeah,
Yeah,
take the
I like it. It's tough, and who it should be is Denzel, but it's very
that's
clearly not going to be, and I don't expect him to grow into that after we haven't seen one glimmer of hope from it in the first 9 games. But ideally, like that's who it should be. It should be the guy that was on a national championship team a year ago as a senior, knows what it takes to win at a high level, and he's just not doing it for whatever reason. I mean, maybe it's low. I do think like it obviously like it helps. I think a lot when it's a point guard. You know, you mentioned it was Lamont a year ago. I agree, and I think one the way Lamont played defense, I think energized the guys. You know, you talked about Ortega getting a steal and getting out. Lamont would do that too, and I think having him kind of be able to be vocal, be the point guard, be the leader. You know, your point guard's a lot like your quarterback to an extent in football. Like that's the guys that are going to get everybody in the right position and they lead that offense. I don't know how much it'll be low, just to your point of he was hurt. Also, he's more of a ball dominant kind of guard at times. So I don't know. I agree with you in the fact of I don't really see an answer on this team. Again, it should be the guy you paid a lot of money to come here from Florida. It's not for whatever reason. So you might just have to say Ortega's our leader and hope that some of these guys just kind of wake up and come along with him.
Would you say it's safe to say that Denzel's been the biggest disappointment so far this season? Because especially talking from just your and I's perspective, we didn't expect much from Brandon Garrison. I know the outside public or everybody else might think it's going to be Brandon Garrison's been the most disappointing. I don't think you or I saw a big jump coming from BG. And everything that it was labeled is that Denzel was going to take over that starting role at Florida. Todd Golden spoke really highly of him, but then said at the end of the day, I guess the money's just better at Kentucky. Should that have been something that maybe raised a little bit of a red flag that this guy was going to take over, not necessarily just the money, but I'm saying the guy was going to take over as the guy at Florida. He was going to be a starter in a system that he was comfortable in coming off the national championship. And the fact that the money was the only deterrent for him not coming back.
Yeah, I mean, so before I answer, like, has he been the biggest disappointment? Like, we also don't know 100% what goes into these decisions, right? Like, of course,
Mhm.
Florida and Todd Golden has the what am I looking for? They have the reasoning, like they want the narrative to be, oh, he only selected Kentucky because of money, right? That makes them look not as bad, or you know, who knows? Maybe there was other issue. Maybe he just didn't like Todd Golden at the end of the day, or maybe there was something Pope really liked about him. Everything you kind of hear was like Kentucky was a little bit more than Florida, but it wasn't. I don't think like we were offered him like an astronomical amount, but I think there's just this like I don't ever believe what coaches say about money because there's a narrative for you to if you get someone not say you get them just because of money, and if you don't get someone there's a narrative to say like I didn't get this guy because somebody else came in and outbid me. At the end of the day, we don't 100% know what any of these guys are making. So I will say that, like, we don't know. But as far as him being the most disappointing, I think it's, through the first 4 games or whatever, it was Ortega. But we've talked, I think Ortega's starting to come along. You're starting to see what you were seeing from him a year ago. Denzel, I feel like a lot of the fans aren't to that point with him because he did have 26 in Louisville. And I think when you look at that on paper, you're like, wow, he was the only one that showed up for that Louisville game. But I'm extremely disappointed. And the biggest thing, again, that I'm disappointed with, like we talked about, is that leadership quality. Having a guy that, again, national champion, coming from a really good school. You played alongside Walter Clayton, one of the best guards, and if not the best guard in the country a year ago. And you get here, and it's like you don't really care to be out there. I I agree with you. I think he has been the most disappointing because of, like you said, where we thought BG would be coming into the year. We didn't expect a whole lot out of him. I know he's been hurt. I would, to an extent, put Diabate there right now. We'll see what he looks like when he returns. But yeah, I mean, I think it is Denzel.
Yeah, and you mentioned Mo Diabate there, and I kind of just wanted to hit on something with him. I think if you're going to have a vocal leader, that's probably your answer. I kind of forgot about him when we were mentioning him. It feels like it's been so long since he's played.
It
And
could be.
honestly, the fact that, you know, it's a puzzle piece that honestly doesn't really fit in this team right now. It's
But
kind of
nothing
why
does. So
the team really doesn't make sense the more you look at it, especially when the shooters aren't shooting. And I mean, I'm hoping Mo, Jake, I texted you, sent you a nice video after the women's game yesterday, and was like, hey, the Cats talk just got the exclusive. Now, I talked to Mo on Sunday. He said he's going to be back on the 13th against Indiana. I don't expect that to make a huge difference, but maybe it does give you that vocal leader, and maybe that does give you just a little bit of more of like a calming sense that, like, hey, we do know we have this bruiser that if something does go wrong, Field of 68's mentioning just like play physical, commit
yeah,
hard fouls. Like, don't make everything so easy at the rim. This is something that we kind of complained about a little bit last year, but you still had some guys who would take those fouls. Right now, I mean, who is that? I don't
yeah,
know if there is anyone that you expect to challenge a shot or even just play solid defense in the paint. And
yeah. Right now, I'm at the point, real quick, just because of how bad every lineup that you've put in with your offense and defensive lapses and everything, like all five guys, I don't care who the five you put out there. I don't care on paper how bad they should be offensively or defensively. Just give me the five guys that are going to play the hardest. And I do agree that Mo Diabate should be one of those guys. So again, like I'm to the point right now that if you're going to lose and you're going to play bad and you're not going to be able to score, at least give me five guys that are going to go out there and bust their ass and dive on loose balls and play physical.
I completely agree with you. And you mentioned the lineup there, and one of Pope's quotes was, we're looking at everything, we're reconstructing everything. We got a game tomorrow that let's give that a test run. I know no matter who you put out there, you're going to win that game and probably win it by at least 25. But I want to see him take those chances. If it's a full different starting five, you feel like that's something you need to do to make a point to,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of, and this might be a topic for another day, a lot of the problems with like NIL and, the money getting it at such an early age is like a lack of listening to authority. I think Coach Pope does need to like remind these guys, like, hey, you are making as much money as I am. Some of you guys, just under what I'm making. I still do hold the keys to how this entire thing goes. You don't come in, play with effort, you're not playing. I think there's a little level of accountability that I think should be shown on Tuesday. And I don't know who that's with. Obviously, you mentioned we're not behind those closed doors to see who's not giving effort and who is. I want to see some sort of major shakeup on Tuesday. And that's really the only thing I'm looking for. I want to
Yeah.
see guys come in with effort because it doesn't matter. We can talk about this game and we will talk about this game when it's over. It genuinely does not matter what they do against North Carolina Central. No one will care. People, hopefully, you guys still listen. I hope
Yeah.
you guys listen. It's not Jake and I just talking for no reason. But nobody will care until Indiana comes in on Saturday and you prove it there. So tinker with the lineups. Go put guys together that you didn't think would mesh together. Because right now, no one's meshing together. You
Yeah.
have no answers. Throw everything at the wall against NCC and see if something sticks.
Yeah. And I think, again, I don't even care how bad on paper the lineup looks just because it's been bad so obviously so far. I would have said Saturday, Sunday, Monday, the five guys that come in and compete the hardest in practice are the guys that I'm going to go with, maybe to your point, to start the game and kind of send a message. And you mentioned NIL and like getting money, and it maybe leads to like this authority thing. Well, like in part, that's something that Pope's got to learn to deal with or figure out, right? You know, Cam Boozer's 18 at Duke. You like that dude is busting his ass. He's probably making as much money as anybody, and he's going to be a top 3 pick in the NBA draft. Guess what? He's still listening to John Shire every day and showing up and giving the effort that they demand there at Duke. Across the country, all these top 25 teams, those guys are still competing. They're all getting paid
Almost but here.
Exactly. And that's why I don't think it's just an NIL thing. Maybe you got to coach a little different than you did a few years ago. I mean, hell, Patino's finding a way to get these guys to play hard, and St. John's has got one of the top 3 most expensive rosters in the sport. Michigan's getting guys to play hard. They spent as much as Kentucky, if not more. So I just think you have to find a way to motivate them. And if it is Denzel, whoever else, you're going to the bench here to start this game until you show me something. Maybe it's a wake-up call. We talked about how good I know it was only one game, but Brandon Garrison, the first time he got benched, he came in and I thought played with a lot of energy. Where it's gone since then, couldn't tell you. Maybe he just decided he doesn't care. But anything to kind of spark it. And maybe even Tuesday night, you start all those guys, make them think it's cool. You try a couple different lineups throughout the game, and then you do it to start Indiana. And maybe that's the wake-up call they need of, man, we got a huge game and we're up here, and coach is putting me on the bench. But they got to do something to at least get the effort. Again, I don't think this roster is constructed to be very good. That's obviously a big switch from what I had preseason, I understand. But I just don't think they're very good. So give me the 5 guys that are going to play the hardest. And that's genuinely where I feel we should be at right now.
Yeah, and if I can take away one positive from the game against Gonzaga, it's we did have a game plan and we did have a game plan and we stuck with it. I mean, that was something that I asked you. We'd come in one week or Tuesday, we'd shoot 33s, and then that following game we'd shoot 13. At least in this game, you literally lived and died by what you think is the best recipe of success for this team. Granted, did you die and did you die tragically? Absolutely. But for the first time this year, I think I actually saw conviction from the staff in what they think is their process to win a game. Granted, were they absolutely wrong? Yes. But I mean, like I said, I'm scrapping for positives, and there it was right there. Jake, I kind of want to ask you, we mentioned the guys who we think will play the hardest. I actually think, don't get me wrong, Brandon Garrison, you look at the stat line, 5 points, 2 rebounds in 17 minutes. None of that's going to blow you away. But I genuinely don't think, I think since his benching, the effort has gotten better, and it's been better throughout since he's been there. I mean, you're at the point where outside of Ortega and Collin in that starting lineup, I don't see you can bench everybody outside of those 2. I mean, Collin's giving you consistent effort. I think the game plan is starting to show that Collin is our best scorer, and he's starting to have to work harder for his shots, which I think has resulted in him not being as productive the past couple of weeks. Jake, what way do you think you can send the message best to this team? Whether that is just a starting lineup difference, whether that is, like they mentioned on Field of 68, they wouldn't say who they were talking about specifically. They said it wasn't in the backcourt, so it's somebody in the front court. I mean, he was talking about literally just suspending him and kicking him off the team. I don't know. Again, I have no basis for saying that, but I do think there is a respect factor that I think needs to be held with this team, because right now I just don't think that's there, because they're not playing for the coach. They're not playing hard for the coach. So obviously Pope hasn't got them to buy in yet. They're not playing hard for the university. They're not playing hard for their fellow teammates. So what else can you do to try and get these guys motivated? I think the only thing you can do is playing time.
Yeah.
Playing time has to be taken away, and I think that's the only way in which you start to get that effort back.
Yeah, and I think that's the only way. And, we're not at practice every single day, so we don't know who's giving you effort on the day-to-day versus who's not. I'm assuming it probably translates pretty similar to the game. So I think everything we've seen to this point, it's probably like Denzel Aberdeen. Maybe it's just if you just sit him, it'll wake some of these other guys up and be like, man, if I don't have my stuff together, I mean, this is a senior that came in and is making a ton of money, and Pope's willing to send him to the bench. Imagine what he'll do to me as the seventh or eighth man. Like, I need to go out here and work. So maybe it really is just as simple as just one of those guys. But, and like the crazy thing is we saw it early in the year. I know we were playing somebody bad. I think it was right after Louisville. So whoever that next game was, where guys like weren't getting back or rebounding, and you heard Pope on the bench say like, if you're not, I'm going to pull you out, sit you, and then you're going to run all day tomorrow. Like, and it got better for a game. So like, just how do we do that to consistently get there? And I agree. I mean, really, the only thing you can say is playing time. I mean, the old saying goes like the bench is the number one motivator, and maybe you just got to get there, and maybe you sit somebody for for literally an entire half or a game, and maybe that sends the clear message.
Yeah, Jake.
And I do almost think like it would come across more impactful if it's Saturday against Indiana, but now you're at a situation where like you got to go win that game.
You
I mean,
must
I don't
win.
think. I mean, there might be some guys on this team. If you sat them for Tuesday night, they're like, "This is nice. I'm getting an off day in the middle of the week." So, because like that's not a game where like you particularly can't have somebody. You're still gonna go win by 20 plus. So I don't know. I think it would come across more impactful against Indiana, but again, you put yourself in a situation where like if you want to make the tournament, you got to win some of these games coming up.
And Jake, do you feel like you were sold a bad deal in the off season? Because everything that we were told, and everything that was talked about was like how good of a shooting team this is. Oh, they're not missing in practice. These guys love each other. Man, I can't wait to get this revved up. $22 million. We better have the most expensive roster. Like everything in the offseason was almost gassing the expectations even to another level. And I think that's why when we actually, and I still have no idea how it happened, like why we actually, when we beat Purdue, I think that's why our expectations and Big Blue Nation took it to a whole nother level because it's everything was matching there for a while.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you were sold just a shoddy deal?
Yes and no. Like again, the money to me genuinely does not matter. Like at the end of the day, we had crazy high expectations before
I
these
want to say
guys were good.
something real quick. This is also coming from a guy that is happy that the Bengals gave another $14 million to Trey Hendrickson for no reason. But continue.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Well, all right, we'll go with that. But like I legitimately at the end of the day, it's not our money, right? The donors are going to invest in who they want to invest in, and I don't make billions to go out there and decide, where my money should go to. But the expectations were there before NIL. They're going to be there during NIL and for forever, right? And I think when you have a team that's 5-4 and has lost all four of their Power Four games to start a season, I'm going to be pretty upset and pretty ticked off. And I just think on paper, we talked ourselves into a lot of these guys being good shooters, and they should be better. Why they're not, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I just think, unfortunately, this roster just wasn't constructed good. And we talked ourselves into it, and we all, I think, overlooked a lot of the deficiencies. I think it was Jeff Goodman I heard just talk about how Pope just like super overcorrected based on last year getting out physical, and he just kind of forgot what he was good at. And I heard some other people make really good points. It was like when he whiffed on a shooter or lost out to him for whatever the reason was, NIL, not wanting to be here, who knows, I don't know what the reasons were, but he like overcorrected so much in the other way, right? You lose out on Lamar Wilkerson, who's a really good offensive threat, and you go and you get Denzel Aberdeen. Well, I think you can have a Denzel Aberdeen on a Mark Pope team, but you can't have five guys that are like that kind of role. You need the shooters, and for whatever reason, maybe Pope thought these guys were better shooters than they are, but I just think the roster construction wasn't good, because I promise you, next year we'll probably go spend as much. It's just you better give the money to the right guys.
Yeah, well, the thing that concerns me is like I know this is Kentucky basketball, but you also get to a point where if you are a donor and you look at, man, I paid 20, I was a part of this 22 million, and why, like you start to get more cognizant of giving that money. You start to think about more,
Sure.
like, I don't know if I want to, I want to keep giving this money. I think that's going to be a cautionary tale if it continues. I don't think it'll happen just after this season, but I think that is something I am growing concerning of coming forward if it's to continue. But like you mentioned, with some of the whiffs that we had, I just think there was. I think he started off going star hunting, which you should as Kentucky basketball and being, a blue chip brand. But then once you get past that, like once you can't think about it like as a baseball team, you're the Cincinnati Reds. If you can't get that star in early, you can't get them under a contract that you expect. You have to find a way to piece together a roster that fits each other. It seems like once they whiffed on their initial guys like Donovan Dent, like Lamar Wilkerson, like Yaxel, like that Magoon McGuath, like all these guys that, I mean, the list goes on and on of guys we reached out to and weren't able to get for one reason or another. Felt like there really was no backup plan. It was just, I think this guy's good, and I know we need defense and physicality. Let's go get him. And the thing that sucks is, like, we were talking about this overcorrection, like Goodman mentioned. Have you seen that corrected? Because I
No.
haven't.
And I think that's in part like roster construction. Like, I genuinely believe probably Pope thought, like, I can teach anybody how to play offense. I can get any team out there to go out and score 80-ish points a night, or, high 70s. I need to get better defensively. I just think he overestimated what he could do with this roster. And to your point, the guys aren't corrected. But again, I feel like it's like an effort thing a lot of times. And why that's not there, I don't know. Is it just these guys genuinely like don't like each other and they all hate each other and nobody wants to play hard? Possibly. Is it something with Pope? We're not there on the day to day, but I do think he overcorrected, and I think he overestimated what he could do with guys that aren't high level, shooters. And again, he's going to have to construct a better roster next year, and a roster that I think fits his style better.
Yeah, and does that make you more concerned for next year and next year's recruiting class that we have yet to get anyone signed? And a lot of these, don't ask Mitch Barnhart about it, of course, because
Yeah.
we don't want to get yelled at or anything here. But does it make the JMI thing where you're hearing like Christian Collins is a done deal? They just can't figure out JMI's side of getting the actual numbers to match. Does it make that mixture with what Pope has done this year? Does that start to give you a little bit more hesitation about next year?
Not from the Pope aspect, because I do think Pope realizes that he messed up this year, or at least I would hope. I mean, he's a very smart guy. We're 5-4. He understands this team just isn't good. I hope that he has that level of awareness to be like, I need guys that can fit my style. Even though I came in mid-April last year, I was still able to go out and find guys. Maybe they weren't my number one choices if I had a full off season, but I could still find guys that can play my style, fit my level of basketball. So I think Pope will make that. The JMI thing scares me to death. And like, it's weird because again, we're talking about this potential $22 million roster that you've heard some people say yeah, some people say no. Regardless of what the number is, I think it's pretty well consensus that you paid a top five level, a top five salary in college basketball. But I don't understand like what the hiccup is with this JMI thing. And part of it is just because we don't know what their actual role is. How much more involved are they in this cycle versus last year? I don't know. And the JMI thing does scare me because there are top level guys that it sounds like we want to be in on, and we just can't for some reason. I mean, you hear like even back to last year, Donovan Dent didn't come here because of money. Again, maybe he just said, I'm not going to be a good fit with Pope. I don't want to go there. I'd rather go to UCLA. And maybe we put it out there that it was more about money than like, it's so hard to tell. But I'm not going to say I'm more worried just because I do think Pope has to realize that this grand idea that he had to go out and get more physical and better defensively, I think he realizes like that's just not going to work flat out.
Yeah, and it sucks that, there had to be a full trial year. Now, granted, still only 9 games in. This can be turned around. I think it's more just the fact that we were searching for answers and we don't think that they are here.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at. And until they do it against a good team, you got 3 tests coming up here soon. You got St. John's, you got Indiana, and you got Alabama, all within the next 2.5 weeks. You're generally talking about potentially being 500, if not under 500, at the end of that Alabama game. So they've got to get something going, and they've got to get it rolling now, because I know they play North Carolina Central and Bellarmine in that time frame as well. After that, there's 3 tough teams that you got to play, and you got to find ways to win. Jake, is there anything that you want to? We've been super sour, and I think rightfully so. Is there anything that you can give Big Blue Nation that feeds into a little bit of positivity with this basketball team?
Man, I don't know. I'm not gonna say I'm one of the most like sunshine pumper people, but I definitely am probably more than a lot of people, right? When it comes to basketball, as negative as I am on football, I kind of always
We are polar opposites with that.
yeah. This man, I just don't know because again, they just haven't really shown you outside of a little stretch at Louisville. Maybe you think when as Jalen Lowe kind of gets more comfortable coming back. He was obviously awful Friday. Again, he only had one full practice leading up to that. Like I think it's going to take some time for him to get comfortable. Maybe you can kind of see what you saw for those 10-ish minutes against Louisville more consistently. That's really as positive as I can be right now, unless they show something Saturday that
Jake,
we just haven't seen yet.
I got something positive.
Let's hear it.
Jake Hughes practicing.
That is a positive.
There's some positive. They said they're targeting the St. John's game for his return. That's something positive. Hopefully, that fixes our rebounding woes, especially, because it feels like we've been playing some solid defense, at least in the half court transition. Yep. We got a lot to work on and a lot to figure out. But we mentioned it in previous podcasts, like those second chance points are really killing this team. Allowing those second chance points, hopefully that's something that JQ can help and come clean up. And hopefully that takes a lot of the load off of Malachi. So when he does come in, he's facing the other team's backup. You push him down another rung. That's the positivity that I got for you. Granted, hopefully Jalen Lowe coming back. Hopefully just all 3 of the guys who have been out, who could all be potential starters on this team. Hopefully all 3 of them coming back. There's some camaraderie with that group. Maybe all of them going through rehab together. All of them, sitting in those rooms, waiting and figuring out when they can be back on the court. Hopefully they've got some camaraderie built up that the others don't, and that can really spark this team. Did you believe any of the positivity I gave you? I tried to make it seem like it was genuine.
I get it. Like, again, we've said it 100 times. You're 9 games into the season. There's still time to turn it around. Granted, we haven't seen one thing that's led us to think they can turn it around, but there is time. When we were 2-5 in football, I don't think there was one thing we said could have turned it around. And next thing you know, you beat Auburn and Florida. And I understand the season still didn't end the way we want it, but who knows? I don't expect it. I've alluded to it. I think this is just unfortunately not a good team, but who knows? Maybe this time next Monday when we're talking about Indiana, we're talking about a big win and we're feeling a little better.
Jake, you think there's any chance that we could phone in one John Calipari for the 2014 tweak? You think we could find one of those?
No, I think Cal's been looking for that tweak for 11 years too. So.
I love it. I completely agree. Well, whether this team turns it around or they don't, you can rely on 2 guys, and that's Cameron Johnston and Jacob Boyers to be here for you, breaking it down. Win or loss, hopefully we're starting to cover a lot more wins. And Jake, we can't let Indiana ride these highs. They just won the Big Ten championship. I've never met an Indiana fan in my life, and somehow this week I've managed to run into 4 or 5. I don't know where they've been in hiding at for so long. It's kind of like Louisville fans. They
Hey,
just
I'll
come.
say I was cheering for them on Saturday.
Oh, so was I. Everyone hates Ohio State if you're not an Ohio State fan. So it was good to see them lose. But it's going to be so much sweeter to see Indiana lose this Saturday. Hopefully, let's speak that into existence. Jake, really quick prediction for the North Carolina Central game. You almost got out of here without making one. Go ahead and give me
Yeah, man, I don't know. 88-60, I'll say. And we still don't feel one way or another about the game or
the
about the
part
team.
that scares me the most is that I was thinking of Kentucky's total. It was 88 is what I was going with. So I'll switch it up. I'll switch it up here. I'm not going to change it too much. I'm going to say 92-50. This North Carolina Central team is genuinely very, very bad. And Kentucky genuinely is probably still going to be a 30-point favorite, if not higher. And the Cats should steamroll, hopefully get a little bit of positive momentum for the home game they got against IU on Saturday. But that's all we've got here for you for the Cats Talk podcast. I'm Cameron Johnston. That's Jacob Boyers. Follow us anywhere you get your podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, YouTube. We're anywhere and everywhere. Jake, we've been spiraling all day here. But hopefully this Cats team gives us something to smile about. Because the women's basketball team, I got sporting them here. They've been giving us quite a lot to smile about. 2-0 week, I think we can start to smile a little bit. Think so?
I hope so. I got to tell you, man, if you told a young Jacob Boyers 10 years ago that there will come a day on a Friday night where he will turn off a UK top 25 basketball matchup for the women's volleyball game, I would have laughed at you and told you were crazy. But guess what I did at 52-26 on Friday night? I flipped over and watched the last two sets of volleyball. And so, who knows? Let's go make one Final Four in the sport and maybe win a national championship.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to say, but we are officially a full volleyball school. I think we're just a women's athletics school. It feels like all the women's schools are taken off. The men have not provided their side of the bargain. But Jake, volleyball's got a huge week. Women's basketball's got a game, 2 men's games. Let's get some positivity running for the city of Lexington, and let's get them going. That's all we've got here for you on the Cats Talk podcast. Go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.